did it disappear?" said the Portuguese. "Here is some." He shook the chamois leather bag, but all I found was leavings in a crack of a temple cellar, where they stored the tribute 1,000 years ago. "Nevertheless," remarked Chulander goes, "India continues swallowing gold and silver in measures of crores, that which is swallowed not reappearing in any discernible shape, contrary to teachings of political economy, which being religion of West is probably poppycock possessing priests with checkbooks and top hats. Where is gold and silver? That is whole point." "Babylon had gold and silver," said the Portuguese. "Where is it?" Jeremy took 20 sovereigns from his belt. "He always carries them, they constituting his uttermost reserve, never to be spent, but to be bluffed with." He jingled them from band to hand as if their music inspired him. Da Gama went on talking. "Always India has imported gold and silver always. But where is it? Some jewelry, but not much. The bracelets of one generation are melted by the next. A very small percentage disappears from where. Of course, there is a little lost. A little more is buried and forgotten. But the balance, the accumulated surplus of at least 6,000 years, I estimate it as a heap as great as the Pyramid of Giza." "And where is it?" Chulander goes blinked. Ali Ben Ali drew his knife and stuck it quivering in the floor again. Narayan Singh breathed sibilantly through set teeth. Jeremy palmed his 20 sovereigns in a pile, and they all disappeared except one, which was fascinating. He did it again, and you couldn't tell where the 19 were until he caught them out of air in his left hand. "What became of the gold of Solomon?" Da Gama asked. "He had so much of it. The records say men thought nothing of gold and silver during his reign. He died, and the gold went where? Some say Solomon himself was one of the 9 unknown." "Who says that?" King demanded. "I for one," Da Gama answered. "But there are books. Ask Cyprian the priest. He has them. Where is the gold the Spaniards and the Portuguese shipped home from South America and Mexico? Where is all the product of the Rand and of Australia? They took $7 billion worth of gold and silver from the Comstock, just one reef in Nevada. Yet tell me, how much gold and silver is there in the world today? The greatest hoard, greater than all other known hoards put together, is in the United States Treasury, and it doesn't amount to a hatful compared to the total that is known to have been mined in the course of history. Where has the rest disappeared?" "That's what we're asking you," Grim warned him, and Ali Ben Ali drew the handle of his knife back and let go so that it hummed like a thing thrown. "I must see the books that Cyprian the priest has," Da Gama answered, looking at the knife and shuddering. "They give no clue to the treasure," King answered. Da Gama actually laughed, a thing he hardly ever did. It sounded like something breaking. Jeremy laughed too, like breaking water, and palmed all 20 sovereigns with one sweep, instantly showing the same hand empty. "The hand deceives the eye," said Jeremy, "and I've seen written stuff that fooled a banker's clerk." "No book can fool me," said Da Gama, slapping his forehead and showing the cloven weakness as he smiled. "I know Sanskrit as Max Muller never dreamed of knowing it. Show me the books of Cyprian the priest and I will tell you where the treasure is." "You're talking rot," said Jeremy. "If Father Cyprian has the books and they contain the secret, why can't he go straight and find the treasure?" "Hey, we wouldn't waste whiskey on you." "Pardon me, but it is little whiskey that you waste," Da Gama answered. "As for Cyprian, the man is blinded by fanaticism. He knows a little Sanskrit, just perhaps enough to pass for erudition among ignoramuses. Brute, he will not read what he sees. He is purblind. I read what I saw, and I know more than a little Sanskrit," King retorted quietly, but Da Gama was more than ever cocksure and sneered back at him. "If Cyprian the priest were not a fool," he said, "he would have set his communicants to stealing books from me. For I have the keys to his books, and he cannot read his without mine. And all my keys are good for is to fit the locks that he guards like a miser. Get me his books, and I will unlock their secrets for you in a week. In 10 days I will show you such a heap of gold and silver as will make you mad. I wish to see you mad. Have no fear that I will disappoint you." Nevertheless, there was not one man in the room who would have dared place Father Cyprian's books in the hands of Da Gama. "Let's see, you have escaped the vengeance of the 9 how many years?" asked Grim, and Da Gama laughed again. He saw the point. "Bring us your books, and you shall compare them with Father Cyprian's," said King. "Thereafter, the books are his, but you shall have as much as you can use of any gold and silver found." Da Gama hesitated. He had intellect, and worked it, prided himself on that. Few of the human passions, except drink and avarice and infidelity, had any influence with him, so he reviewed the situation on its merits, being candid with himself. Like Grim, he sought no solace but results, and he would have wondered why Grim despised him, had he been aware of it. "I cannot bring my books," he said. "They weigh too much. We'll carry them, offered Jeremy. Give me a drink, Dagama answered, nodding. It was obvious he agreed, with a proviso. The Babu poured forth whiskey into the office tumbler and presented it. Dagama drank. We should have an understanding, he said, smacking his lips. There was wisdom in the accumulation of gold and silver by the 9. Don't disregard that. It all has to do with the Kali Yuga, and its end that was prophesied 6,000 years ago. The purpose is to cheapen money by the squandrous abundance of it. The age of darkness referred to in Sanskrit writings. Krishna, gasped Shulander goes. To abolish capitalism, do you see? Dagama went on. That will be the end of the Kali Yuga. Capitalism is the age of darkness. To put in place of money brains intellect, that is the idea. To cheapen money by abundance, not of promises to pay, but of veritable gold and silver. Money being worthless, brains will count intellect, you understand me. Have you intellect? No, just habits. Have I intellect? Oh yes, but have I the reforming zeal? By no means. I am lazy. Let the world remain material and money drunk, it suits me better. Can you accomplish anything without my intellect? No indeed. You cannot understand the Sanskrit, which is a language of conundrums. You would turn the floods of money loose and create a havoc. Money would be worthless, and you know better off. In the books the 9 unknown possess is the only secret of how to prevent the havoc. It means high thinking, and that is hard work too hard. I say, let us take advantage of the money, and not turn it loose. Let the Kali Yuga persist. Let us be rich, wealthy, affluent beyond the dreams, nay, nay. There is no affluence beyond my dreams, said Ali, plucking at his knife. I could use 1,000,000 crores of gold and silver. I would buy the north and build a city and raise a lashkar, such as Iskanders, and speak not of millenniums. The world will burn my day out. Produce but the gold, thou Portuguese. Army. Alexander the Great. Produce the books, said Grimm. The Portuguese got down from the high stool and leaned his back against it. Are we agreed about the money? He asked, looking from eye to eye for disagreement. His was that disposition. He would promise anything to men in whom the seed of disagreement lay, knowing that the future would hold opportunity. But his wandering eye was fascinated by Jeff Ramsden's clenched, enormous fist. It seemed to symbolize. It was a totem. It did not stand for intellect, but it was heartbreakingly honest, neither Latin in its attitude toward a problem, nor cynical, nor unjust, not too credulous, just above board, and direct, and faithful. Produce the books, repeated Grimm. But he was dealing with the Latin temperament, which is not frank, reserving always little secret back ways out from its commitments. I will go and arrange it, Dagama answered. Whereat Jeremy did 3 tricks in succession with a coin, as if by way of illustration. I'll go with you, Ramsden volunteered. I can carry quite a lot of books. No, said the Portuguese, contriving to look scandalized in the way the Latin nations do when anyone suggests a view of their backyard. There are my personalities. I mean, I am not a pip show. I go alone. I will arrange. You may meet me. You shall have the books. I have 7 sons, announced Ali Ben Ali of Sikandaram, with his steel eyes focused on infinity, as if he were dreaming of his distant hills. Well, they would, no doubt, do to carry books, said the Portuguese, not understanding him. Whereat Ali Ben Ali got up and left the room, Narayan Singh locking the door again when he was gone. The others understood that perfectly. Go and make your arrangements. Where will you meet us? Grimm demanded. Do you know my quarters? There then, said the Portuguese. In an hour. No, that is too soon. I have books in one place and another. They must be collected. Come tonight. Leave one of those coins with me, said Jeremy. You shall have it back. Dagama made a gesture of magnificence and passed the chamois leather bag. Jeremy tipped the contents into his hand, and chose, holding up a coin between his fingers. What's it worth? He asked. You can have it when you like, but write me a receipt for it. Dagama took a crumpled sheet of paper from his pocket and straightened it out, smoothing the reverse side. This Babu advising skepticism, as aforesaid. Safety first, advised Chulander goes, squirming nervously. Same being ancient adage. I get you, laughed Jeremy, and he waved aside the proffered sheet of paper, which Dagama pocketed again with an air of impudent indifference. Jeremy produced an English 5-pound note from his pocketbook and wrote his name on it. A formality usually required before any responsible party will cash a stranger's bank note. Take it, I'll trade back whenever you say. The Portuguese looked disappointed but folded the 5-pound note on second thought and slipped it in the lining of his hat. So, he said tartly, I cannot make use of that one, since it is offered as security. If your excellency had another of the same denomination, to be lent me pending, King pulled out his wallet at once and produced the equivalent of £5 in Indian currency notes. The Portuguese accepted them, and they needed no signature. Gracas. To be repaid, Signor. Then we meet tonight at my hotel. He bowed magnificently, wholly unaware that the gesture made him look ridiculous. Narayan Singh unlocked the office door, and he backed out, continuing to bow, ignoring nobody, treating Chulinder Ghose to equal deference, the sneer on his yellow face giving the lie offensive and direct to his politeness, and he unconscious of it. He believed he made a most impressive exit. He is thirsty, very thirsty. And he has £5, remarked Chulinder Ghose, as apropos of nothing as the Northerner's remark had been about his 7 sons. Let's look at the coin, said Grim, and Jeremy passed it. Grim is a numismatist, if a job in a museum at the age of 18 can make a man that. They sent him to the Near East subsequently on the strength of what he knew. He shook his head. It's the same one Cyprian showed us. I've never seen one, nor a reproduction of one like it. I believe it's older than Cyrene. It's not Indian, at least, that isn't Sanskrit lettering, and it's better made than any of the earliest coins we know about. That might be a coin from lost Atlantis. Pre-Adamite, suggested Jeremy, but Grim was serious. I tell you, he answered as the door burst open and Ali of Sikandaram strode in. We're in touch with the riddle of all history, the riddle of the Sphinx perhaps. Oh Lord, if we can only keep in touch. By Allah, there are worse responsibilities than 7 sons, said Ali Ben Ali, grinning. His grin sat crosswise of a black beard like sea foam in the night. If keeping touch is all your honor asks, then count it done. Does a watched pot boil? Or a watched thief steal? Or a watched door open? Your sons will interfere with him, remarked Chulinder Ghose, scratching his nose with an action suggestive of thumbing it. Bellyful of forebodings. They have orders not to interfere with him, the Northerner retorted. Simply to watch, asked King. Simply to watch him. Watch me, said Jeremy. Come close if you like. He palmed the prehistoric coin in half a dozen ways in swift succession, making it move from hand to hand unseen, and plucking it at last from midair, said, I'll bet a fiver the Don steals a march on us. He will steal nothing. Ali Ben Ali of Sikandaram held up a hand as if declaiming in the mosque. My 7 sons are the cleverest thieves that live. A thief can fool a non-thief, but not a professional. They are 7 to 1. But Jeremy laughed, whereat Ramsden, bearded like the bust of Anthony, unclenched his fist and let go the burden of his thoughts. He was a prospector by profession, used to figuring in terms of residue. 40 million ounces, he exclaimed. Do you know what only 1 million ounces a year, say, for 6,000 years would mean? How many trains of boxcars it would take to move it? It would need a fleet of ocean liners. Talk of secrecy's a joke. 9 unknown having kept said secret for 6,000 years. Chulinder Ghose retorted. And whose is the money by right? Asked Grim, that being the kind of poser you could count on him for. The fighters, the finders, shouted Ali of Sikandaram, and Narayan Singh agreed, nodding, saying nothing, permitting his brown eyes to glow. And at that Chulinder Ghose looked owlish, knowing that the soldier wins but never keeps, sacrifices, serves, eats promises, and dies in vain. He did not tell all he knew, being a rather wise civilian. He sighed. Chulinder Ghose did. There possibly may be enough for all of us, he said, rolling his eyes upward meekly. Then Cyprian returned from strolling in the Chandni Chowk with that incurious consent of crowds conferred on priests and all old men between the hours of indignation. You didn't hurt him. Children, you didn't hurt him, he demanded. Did he drink a little too much? Did he talk? King and Grim repeated what had happened, Cyprian smiling, shaking his head slowly, possibly because of old age, yet perhaps not. At 80 years a man knows how to take advantage of infirmity. The long spoon, he said, the long spoon. It only gives the devil leverage. You should have kept him here. Ali Ben Ali flared up at that, Quran in mind along with many other scriptures that assail the alien priest. My sons, he began. Our children, too, said Cyprian. I credit them with good intentions. They are men, said Ali, and turned his back. Then Jeremy, who has no reverence for anyone or anything, but 2 men's share of natural affection, took Cyprian by the arm and coaxed him away to lunch at a commercial club, promising him a nap on a sofa in a corner of the empty cloakroom afterwards. The ostensible bait he used was an offer to introduce a man who owned an ancient roll of Sanskrit mantras, but it was Jeremy's own company that tempted. Cyprian leans on him, and seems to replenish his aging strength from the Australian superabundant store, a strange enough condition, for as religion goes, or its observances, they are wider than the poles apart. All things to all men, ain't you, Pop? Said Jeremy. Come and eat curried quail. The wine's on ice. And there you are, remarked Schulander Goes, as the two went out, illustrating the thoroughness of the airness by catching a fly on the wing with his thumb and forefinger and releasing it through the open window, presumably unharmed. Matters of mystery still lack elucidation, but the wine's on ice. How Anglo-Saxon. Wonderful. United States now holding greater part of world's supply of gold, and India holding total invisible ditto, same are as plus and minus, so we go to lunch. I dishonestly propose to issue bills of exchange against undiscovered Empyrean equity, but shall be voted down undoubtedly. Verb. Sap. As saying is browbeaten, sat upon, yet only wise man of the aggregation. Sell stock, that is my advice. Issue gilt-edged scrip at premium, and pocket consequences. Sell in U.S.A., undoubtedly, residing subsequently in Brazil. But there you are. Combination of Christian priest, Sikh, fanatical Muslim, freethinker, agnostic, Methodist minister's son and syndicalist, is too overwhelming for shrewdness to prevail. Myself, I'm syndicalist, same being syndicalist with opportunist tendencies. I go to tiffin. Appetite a good digestion a siesta. Sahib's humbly wishing you the same salam. Schulander Goes, too, bowed himself out backward, almost as politely as the Portuguese had done, indubitably mocking, giving no offense, because, unlike the Portuguese, he did not sneer. Chapter 3. Light and longer weapons. In their day the Portuguese produced more half-breeds per capita than any other nation in the world. There are stories about a bonus once paid for half-breed babies. Their descendants advertised the Portuguese of Goa without exactly cherishing the institutions of the land that gave them origin. They have become a race, not black nor white nor even yellow, but all three, possessed of resounding names and of virtues that offset some peculiarities. Not loving Goa, they have scattered. A few have grown very rich, and all exist in a no-man's land between the rival castes and races, where some continue to be very poor indeed. Others are cooks, stewards, servants, and a few, like Fernandez de Mendoza de Souza Dion Braganza, keep hotels. His was the Star of India, an amazing place with a bar and a license to sell drinks, but with a separate entrance for people ridden by compunctions. It was an ancient building, timbered with teak but added to with sheets of corrugated iron, whitewashed. Some of the upper rooms were connected with the cellar by cheap iron piping of large diameter, up which those customers who had a reputation to preserve might pull their drink in bottles by a string. Still other pipes were used for whispering purposes. In fact, the Star of India hostelry was known to the police and was never raided, it being safer to leave villains a place where they thought themselves safe from observation. As happens in such cases, the Star of India had a respectable reputation. Thieves only haunt the known thieves' dens in storybooks. It was no place for a white man who insisted on his whiteness, nor for Delhi residents, nor for social lions. Nevertheless, it was crowded from cellar to roof with guests belonging by actual count to 19 major castes, including more or less concealed and wholly miserable women folk. The women in such a place who keep themselves from contact and defilement suffer worse than souls in the seventh pit of Dante's hell. 9 out of 10 of the guests were litigants and from the country, waiting their turn in the choked courts, tolerating Diomed's hospitality because it was cheap. The farce of caste restrictions could be more or less observed. Intrigue was easy. You could see the lawyer of the other side. And as for thieves and risks, where are there none? The tenth in every instance was undoubtedly a thief or worse. There lived Da Gama, pure-blooded Portuguese, greatly honoring the half-breed by his presence. Like the caste women, Da Gama kept within the stifling walls by day as a general rule. But, again as in the women's case, his nights were otherwise. They went to the roof then, where such little breeze as moved was hampered by curtains hung on clothes lines to make privacy. He went to the streets, and was absent very likely all night long, none knowing what became of him, and none succeeding in entering his locked, large corner room. That night King, Grim, Ramsden and Jeremy went to Diomed's hotel to keep their tryst with Da Gama. They were dressed, except Jeremy, as Jat's a race with a reputation for taking care of itself, and consequently seldom interfered with, surly, moreover, and not given to answering Strange's questions. Jeremy wore Arab clothes, that being the easiest part he plays. Plenty of Arabs go to Delhi because of the agitation about the caliphate, so he excited no more comment than the other three. Mainly, in India, the religions keep apart. But that is where the Goans comes in. He acts as flux in a sort of unacknowledged way, currying favor and abuse from all sides. There were in Diomed's Star of India hotel not only Sikhs and Hindus but bearded gentry, too, from up Peshawar way, immensely anxious for the fate of women folk they left behind them, but not so respectful of a Hindu's matrimonial prejudices. So the roof was parceled into sanctuaries marked by lines of sheeting, each stifling square in which a lantern glowed, a seraglio, crossing of whose threshold might lead to mayhem, for nerves were on end those murderous hot nights, and lawsuits had not sweetened dispositions. To the northerners the quartering of that roof by night was pure sport, risk adding zest. They were artists at making dovecotes flutter past grand masters of the lodge whose secret is the trick of making women coo and blush before their husbands' eyes. And not even an angry Hindu husband takes chances, if he can help it, with the Khyber knife that licks out like summer lightning in its owner's fist. So there were doings, and a deal of wrath. King, Grim, Ramsden and Jeremy found Dogama's room and drew it blank. There was a keyhole, but it was screened on the inside by a leather flap that yielded when pushed with a wire without giving a view of the room. There was always someone lurking in a corner in the Star of India, possibly a watchman, and perhaps not volunteered the information that the Excellency Sahib might be on the roof. Fernandez de Mendoza de Souza Dion Braganza, sent for, denied having a pass key to the room or any knowledge of its occupants' movements. He, too, deliberately noncommittal, suggested the roof and, deciding there was no money to be made, began to be rude. So Grim offered him 50 rupees for one look at the inside of Dogama's room. There is nothing in there, Dion insisted. Grim raised the offer to 100 and then pretended to lose interest, starting away, whereat the Goans chased all possible informers out of the passage, produced an enormous key, and pushed wide the 2-inch teak door that was supposed to keep Dogama's secrets. I told you there was nothing in there, he said, pocketing Grim's money. He was right to all intents and purposes. There were a bed, one chair, a little table, half a dozen empty shelves, and a cheap old-fashioned wardrobe from which such garments as Dogama owned had been thrown out on the floor. For the rest, a dirty tumbler, 2 empty bottles, a carafe, pens, ink, paper, a dilapidated dictionary, and some odds and ends. Where are his books? Grim asked. Gone, said the Goans unguardedly. Then there were books. That is to say, Your Excellency, Sahib, how should I know? Are you spies for the police? If so, Grim showed him another 100-rupee note. I am a poor man, said Dion. I would like your honor's money. But I know nothing. The eyes of a Goans are like a dog's, mild, meek, incalculably faithful, but to what they are faithful is his own affair. He is likely not faithful to the world, which has broken trust with the half-breed too often for the shattered bits to be repaired. He was afraid of something, someone, and too faithful to the fear to take any liberties. Nevertheless, the room was dumbly eloquent. It had been raided recently by men who were at no pains to conceal the fact. Even the pockets of the clothes were inside out. How many men came? Grim demanded. Sahib Bahadur, Your Excellency's honor, I do not know. Are you spies for the police? He asked again, and then smiled suddenly at the absurdity of that, for the police don't argue with 100-rupee notes. I will die rather than say a word, he continued, and crossed himself. You know Father Cyprian? Asked Jeremy in English, so unexpectedly that the Goans stampeded. You must all come out. I must lock the door. You must go away at once, he urged. Yes, oh yes, I know Father Cyprian, an old man very estimable, oh, yes. Go away. Take my tip. Confess to Father Cyprian. Let's try the roof, said Jeremy, and as it was no use staying where they were, the others followed him. You see, said Jeremy over his shoulder, pausing on the narrow wooden stairs, with one hand on the rail, if he goes and confesses to Cyprian, Cyprian won't tell us, but he'll know, and what's in a man's head governs him. Better have Cyprian know than none of us. They emerged on the roof into new bewilderment, for there were sheets everywhere, and shadows on them, but no explanation, only a pantomime in black and white, exaggerated by the flapping and the leaping lights. Somewhere a man sang a Hindu love song, and an Afghan was trying to sing him out of countenance, wailing his own dirge of what the Afghan thinks is love, all about infidelity and mayhem. That's one of Ali's 7 sons, said King, so Grim cried out, and the man came, swaggering between the sheets and breaking down a few as his elbows came in contact with the string, leaving a chattering rage in his wake that pleased him beyond measure. Nor was it one of the sons at all, but Ali of Sikandaram himself. Where is the Portuguese? King asked him. My sons have him in view. I don't know just now where he is. Where are they? That's just it. I don't know. They were to report here one by one, as each watched him for a distance and then turned him over to another. And none has returned. No, none yet. What have you been doing? By Allah, quarreling with Hindus. If you Sahibs had not come, there is one who might have found his manhood presently and made sport. Have you watched Dog Amma's room? Demanded King. Nay, why should I? Who should watch a bat's nest? I have held the roof where my sons may find me. Then you don't know who or how many men went to the Portuguese's room? Ramsden asked him. Ask the Prophet. How should I know? You heard me say I kept roof, he retorted. He had a notion that Ramsden was a subordinate who might be snubbed because he said less than the others. Are your sons as wide awake as you are? Ramsden asked, and Jeremy, seeing his friend's fist drew deductions, he whistled softly and stood aside. My sons are the 7 sleepers, Jeff suggested, finishing the sentence for him, which was cartel and defiance in the raw code of Sikandaram, although Ramsden hardly knew that yet. He learned it then. Ali whipped his knife out and sprang, being due some education too. The knife went whinnying through the air and pierced a sheet, where it knocked a Hindu lantern out and was recovered presently. Before a hand could interfere or a word restrain them, Ali and Ramsden were at grips. The hairy northerner within the space of 10 grunts lost his footing and began to know the feel of helplessness, for Ramsden's strength is as prodigious as his calmness in emergency. As easily as he had wrenched the knife away, Jeff whirled the Afghan off his feet and shook him, the way a terrier shakes a rat, making his teeth rattle, and a couple of hidden knives, some cartridges and a little money go scattering along the roof, shook him until all the kick was out of him, shook him until his backbone ached and even his desperate fingers, weakening, ceased from clawing for a hold. Then, holding him with one hand by the throat so that he gurgled, Jeff set him on his feet, reserving his other fist for such necessity as might arise. This had to come, he said. Now you know English. Are we friends or enemies? He let go with a laugh and shoved Ali back onto his heels, ready to grip again if the other should choose enmity. By Allah, wait until my sons learn this, gasped Ali, rubbing the throat under his beard where Jeff's thumb had inserted itself. I will lick them 2 at a time when their turn comes. Now's your turn. What's your answer? Ali looked in vain for a hint of sympathy. The others stood back, giving the man of their own race full opportunity. There was nothing for Ali Ben Ali to do but capitulate or fight. He did not stomach either course contentedly. If I say friend, you will think I am a coward, he retorted. If you say enemy, I will know you are a fool, said Ramsden, laughing, and that was additional cause for offense, for whatever you do you must not laugh when you speak of weighty issues with Sikandaram. You laugh at me. Bye. Ramsden realized his error in the nick of time. Sikandaram would submit to being thrown off the roof rather than be laughed at. I jested with the thought that you could be a fool, Jeff answered. It was lame, but it just limped. It gave the northerner his chance to back down gracefully. By Allah, I am friend or enemy. Nothing by halves with me, said Ali. I am not afraid of life or death, so take your choice. No, your choice, Jeff answered. Mine. Well, I have enemies, and by Allah, a friend is as scarce as an honest woman. Let these be witnesses. I call you friend. Shake hands, said Ramsden, and Ali shook, a little warily because of the strength of the grip he had felt. You have the best of the bargain, he said, striving to grin, not finding it too easy, for he passed in his own land for a man who brooked no insult. You are 1 man and I 8, for I have 7 sons. If they're included, answered Jeff, that saves my thrashing them. They are included, for the sake of thy great thews, said Ali. Now they are yours as well as mine. Your honor is theirs, and theirs yours. We become 9. 9 again, laughed Jeremy. If anyone were superstitious. Jeff thought of a superstition, and of Ali's knife that had gone slithering through the sheet and smashed a lamp. The northern knife is more than weapon. It is emblem, sacrificial tool, insignia of manhood, keeper of the faith, in one. Jeff set out to find the knife and give it back, doing the handsome thing rather more effectively because of clumsiness. Seizing a handful of the Hindus' switch sheet, he tore the whole thing down, disclosing 2 inquisitively angry women and a man. The man was stout and could not speak for indignation, but was not so bereft of his senses that he did not know the value of a silver-inlaid Khyber knife. Jeff threw the sheet over the women, solving that part of the problem with accustomed common sense, and solved the other with his toe, inserting it under the indignant Hindu, who was exactly wide enough of beam to hover the whole weapon under him diagonally as he sat still with his legs crossed. Jeff seized the long knife, picked up a corner of the bobbing sheet, pushed the Hindu under it to join his women folk, and offered the knife to Ali, hilt first. Thou art my brother, exclaimed Ali, minded to grow